covering climate, weather, and the industrial enterprise from Penn State Meteorology. Here is Up in the Air.
Welcome to this week's episode of Up in the Air. I'm Kasey Rigner.
And I'm Ryan Gold.
Ryan, I am so glad that break is finally here. We get to go home and spend time with family, take a break from classes for a little bit, and get away from campus.
Yes, I am so excited for this break. I do hope that the weather will not be nice and clear, especially for our drive, and even on Thanksgiving Day, because I want to play some football with my family.
Our fingers are crossed that the weather stays nice over break. We have a great episode this week with stories featuring a constantly erupting volcano in Guatemala, as well as patterns of fish migration changing due to warming ocean temperatures.
All that and more, but first, here's Update in the Air.
New research has assessed the impact of global warming on thousands of tree species across the Amazon to discover the winners and losers from 30 years of climate change. The analysis found the effects of climate change are altering the rainforest composition of tree species, but not quickly enough to keep up with the changing environment. The team of scientists led by the University of Leeds in collaboration with more than 30 institutions around the world used long-term records from more than 100 plots as part of the Amazon Forest Inventory Network to track the lives of individual trees across the Amazon region. Their results found that since the 1980s, the effects of global environmental change, stronger droughts, increased temperatures, and higher levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere have slowly impacted specific tree species growth and mortality. The study found the most moisture-loving tree species are dying more frequently than other species, and those suited to drier climates were unable to replace them. The team also found that bigger trees, predominantly canopy species in the upper levels of the forest, are outcompeting smaller plants. The team's observations confirmed the theory that canopy species would be climate change winners as they benefit from increased carbon dioxide. This further suggests that the higher carbon dioxide concentrations also have a direct impact on rainforest composition and forest dynamics, the way forests grow, die, and change.
A trio of explorers climbed the top of Guatemala's Santa Maria volcano, which has erupted almost every hour for the last 94 years, in the hopes to study its mysterious volcanic activity. The volcano in question, Santiaguito, one of the world's most active lava dome complexes, contains 4 lava domes which reside at the base of the volcano. Using 3 different cameras on remote trigger, the group's volcanologists captured images which will be used to create 3-dimensional elevation models and reconstruct the volcano's activity. The crew hopes that the data collected will give them an insight on how the dome reacts prior to, during, and after an eruption to help predict when the next one will occur.
With its wind and precipitation patterns, the South Asian monsoon influences the lives of several billion people. Recent studies indicate that its drivers are more complex than previously assumed. Scientists have now published a reconstruction of precipitation over the eastern Indian Ocean over the past 1 million years. It points to connections with controlling processes in the southern hemisphere that have received little attention so far. But how exactly does this important climate system work, and how will it change in response to future global warming? The monsoon is driven by pressure and temperature differences between the Asian continent and the southern subtropical Indian Ocean. The variability of the monsoon over recent geological time periods is thought to be driven by changes in solar insolation in the northern hemisphere caused by the regularly changing inclination of the Earth's axis. The longer reconstruction of the monsoon history is based mainly on 2 climate archives: sediment cores from the Arabian Sea and stalagmites from caves in China. The new record generally shows that the precipitation of the South Asian monsoon was weaker during the peak ice ages and stronger during the interglacial warm periods like today. Researchers were only able to associate 30% of the variability of monsoon precipitation in the eastern Indian Ocean with fluctuations in the Earth's axis inclination, indicating that it only plays a small role in the fluctuations of the monsoon. Instead, the results of the scientists pointed to important connections with warming phases in the southern hemisphere and moisture transport across the equator to the north.
As the campfires scorched Northern California, the air quality in the Bay Area and Sacramento dropped dramatically with the smoke from the blaze. The smoke had been billowing into the Sacramento area since its start last Thursday, pushing the air quality into the hazardous rating. In order to combat the smoke, the city of Sacramento offered residents free respirator masks, available at all city fire stations, which have been approved by the EPA to protect the lungs from the small particles found in wildfire smoke. The San Anthony Foundation in San Francisco also did its part by opening its emergency shelter to help the homeless get off the streets to avoid the unhealthy air. Last August, a dozen wildfires along the West Coast sent smoke plumes across most of the country. It reached in the Midwest and Southeast. And in 2017, smoke from wildfires in North America reached even all the way to Europe.
Two connected marine ecosystems, the Eastern English Channel and Southern North Sea, experienced big and opposite changes in their fish communities over a 30-year period. Rapid warming drove smaller ocean fish to shift abruptly northward from one ecosystem to the other. This inversion in the structure of the two ecosystems also caused a big switch in the way those connected ecosystems functioned. Ecosystem function refers to the way an assembly of species move with inorganic materials as a larger whole to influence biological, geochemical, and physical processes. Changes in the structure and function of an ecosystem can alter the rate of carbon uptake from the atmosphere or the rate at which organic materials are broken down. Study results suggest that the expected increase in the frequency and severity of climate oscillations and extreme warming events could trigger shifts in the distribution and abundance of species with profound consequences for the way ecosystems around the world function. According to researchers, in the mid-1990s, a natural climate oscillation called the Atlantic Multi-Decadal Oscillation switched from a cool to a warm phase, producing warmer sea surfaces throughout the Atlantic Ocean. Researchers realized that the majority of studies examining the impacts of such warming events on fish have focused on variations of particular species, often focusing on commercial fishery species. Study results suggest that warming events in the future could have a major and long-lasting impact on marine ecosystems and fisheries. Researchers are saying that the results of the new studies could be used to anticipate how other marine ecosystems may change under future warming.
In the sea of bad environmental news, we look toward the sky for something good. A new report from the United Nations says that actions taken to save Earth's ozone layer are working. The ozone hole over the Antarctic is expected to close in the 2060s, and other areas in the atmosphere could recover even earlier. In the early 1980s, scientists discovered that chemicals were depleting the ozone, forming holes. These were not real holes, however, but areas where ozone levels were drastically reduced. Ozone is a naturally occurring gas in the upper atmosphere that protects the life on the planet from the sun's ultraviolet rays. Fears of what could come from overexposure to ultraviolet rays led to 24 nations agreeing to the Montreal Protocol, which banned the use of chemicals causing the ozone depletion. After 30 years, results finally started showing, and in the future, our worries will set with the sun.
Welcome back to the show.
While we do have some activity in the Atlantic Ocean with some tropical systems, we now go to a package that I did about climate change affecting hurricanes.
Florence, Harvey, Irma, and Matthew. Only a small handful of the most disastrous hurricanes to make landfall in recent years. What's to blame for this increase in catastrophic hurricanes? There is evidence which suggests that these hurricanes are increasing in frequency and danger due to factors related to climate change.
Water is crucial for a hurricane, both in its conception and its power. The warmer the water gets, the more frequent and stronger hurricanes become. Even warmer water in the Arctic has a role in the calamity a hurricane brings. Temperature determines how much water will evaporate. The higher the temperature of the water is, the more water there is to condense in the atmosphere. This map from 2017 shows a large change in temperatures of tropical waters compared to the last few decades. This change indicates that there is a warming of the surface and therefore the waters in the tropics. This will increase evaporation, which will lead to bigger storms. The intensity of a hurricane's wind speed is dependent on how large the storm is. The more warm, moist air a hurricane is composed of, the stronger its winds will become. This is due to the air circulating toward the center and moving upward. A hurricane is a massive low-pressure system, and air converges towards the center. The more warm air the hurricane contains, the stronger the winds will be from the warm air congregating toward the eye. While warm water evaporating in the tropics creates hurricanes, there is still another factor that determines how devastating a hurricane will be to an area: storm surges. Storm surges are a rising of the sea due to wind from a storm. The more water there is for a storm surge, the worse it will be for the coastal area. With the melting of the ice caps, sea levels will rise, leading to worse storm surges. This image from NASA shows how the ice caps have changed since 1984. With the continued loss of the ice caps, the more seawater will be available to cause devastating floods for coastal cities.
Hurricanes have been devastating communities for years. Intense flooding, extreme wind speed, and record-breaking rainfall are only going to get worse with the coming years. With climate change warming the surface and seas, we're all sure to get a little hotter under the collar. From the Up in the Air, I'm Ryan Gold.
Welcome back to the show. So Ryan, this past weekend I was able to go to the game. It was cold, it was windy, wind chills were in the 20s. There was snow in the morning. The National Weather Service issued their first snow squall warning.
True, yeah.
Were you at the game?
I wasn't at the game, but I still was outside to feel those temperatures and that wind chill, and it was not pleasant at all. But
No, it wasn't.
I did like seeing some of the snowflakes. Finally, winter's coming. Sad to say goodbye to fall, but
Yeah.
I can appreciate winter. But first, let's go to Logan at the climate wall. Logan, do we have any more cold weather coming up?
You know, Ryan, it looks like that pattern is actually going to continue where you're going to see some cooler temperatures for the coming week. I'll have more details on that in just a few moments. Our climate outlook for this time, mid-November at November 15th, our average high is 50 degrees. Our average low is hovering right around the freezing mark at 34 degrees. Our record high was actually pretty warm, 71 degrees back in 1927, though our record low was set back at 9 degrees, and that was in 1933. So quite a variability between those two records. In terms of our temperature outlook out towards the west, we are going to continue to see above normal temperatures for the time period of November 20th to the 26th, and that's also going to continue down towards the deep south as well, as we're going to see above normal temperatures, even parts of Florida, where we're going to continue to see temperatures averaging in the mid-80s for most of our highs. Up towards our region in State College, we are going to continue to see a pattern that's going to provide us with some cooler temperatures than what we typically see this time of year, seeing temperatures probably about 2 to 4 degrees below average for this time. And precipitation, a lot of the country actually going to be above normal for this period. Up towards our north and west, though, we are going to see below normal precipitation in parts of Oregon and Washington. Down towards parts of where the California wildfires were occurring, it looks like we might actually see some relief in terms of precipitation there. Down towards the deep south, once again, we are going to continue to see this pattern providing us with more moisture throughout the region. And also here in State College, we actually might be on the boundary between seeing some dry precipitation days and some days that have above normal precipitation for this time of year. We could even see some wintry type precipitation with those cooler temperatures. And our drought monitor out towards the west, still seeing the Four Corners dealing with an exceptional drought there. Also, the drought is continuing in parts of California where we have seen those wildfires. A lot of homes and people have been affected with this. Out towards our region, I think we've seen a lot of rain for the entire year, and it looks like we are in a-okay condition here. Snow depth up towards the Rocky Mountains and parts of Billings. We've seen actually some intense amounts of snowfall up towards here and into parts of Breckenridge. I saw we had almost 80 inches within the past week, so a lot of snow there. Out towards our region in the mountains, we are still seeing some dustings of snow across the higher elevations, but other than that, most of the snow you need to go up towards parts of Maine to see any of accumulation that is still on the ground. If you are traveling home this weekend, it looks to be a-okay as you are traveling probably far distances. The weather should remain dry for most of us. We are tracking that storm for Thursday and the Friday, but as we look towards the weekend, Saturday and Sunday looks to be partly cloudy. We are still tracking the potential for some lake effect bands here across State College on Saturday. Temperatures are going to stay well below normal for what we typically see. So guys, if you are traveling, make sure you have your winter gear wherever you're going, because it's not going to move from Pennsylvania at all.
Thanks, Logan. That is good to know. I'm glad that the precipitation should hold off. I have to drive home 10 hours to Chicago, so the last thing I need on that long car ride is snow, precip, rain, whatever it may be. So I'm glad to hear that's going to be clear.
Yeah, I'm driving home too. Not as far as Chicago, but I'm still glad to hear it's going to be clear.
Thank you so much for tuning in with us this week on this week's episode of Up in the Air. I'm Kasey Rigner.
And I'm Ryan Gold.
Have a great fall break, and make sure you catch us in 2 weeks Up in the Air.